Microsoft reported its Q3 FY26 earnings just the other night, and there's a lot of different takeaways from this, but there's two real key takeaways as customers you need to be paying attention to. One is the obvious, right? AI, right? Satya spent a lot of time on it. Amy Hood talked a lot about it. All the financial analysts talked about it. Of course they are, and there's no issue with that. That's an obvious theme. But associated with AI, and I've been talking about this a lot, there was a lot of conversation about seat-based licensing and consumption-based licensing and how Microsoft is approaching this. Now, they've talked about it in the past at conferences and other earnings calls, and I'm sure your sales reps have dabbled a little bit as they themselves are figuring out. But there was a lot of things said today that were the other day rather, that were focused on that I'm going to cover specifically. Let's get into some of the numbers and let's get to that. Total revenue, $82.9 billion, up 18%. They actually beat what analysts were expecting. They were expecting to come in around $81.39 billion. Gross margin, 68%. That actually was a decrease. It has a lot to do with investments, infrastructure, data center, so forth and so on. Cloud revenue, Microsoft Cloud revenue, $54.5 billion, up 29%. Commercial cloud, Microsoft 365 commercial cloud revenue was up 19% for that quarter. Q3 2025, it was a 12% growth. So they're accelerating growth there. The average revenue per user, the ARPU, up 19%. Actually, sorry, not up to 19%. Microsoft 365, E5, Copilot are driving the ARPU. They never give numbers. I don't even know what got into me on that one. LinkedIn revenue up 12%. D365 revenue up 22%. Azure, big one, right? Azure and Cloud Services up 40%. It was up 33% last Q3. So again, it's accelerating growth if you look at from last Q3 to this Q3. Here's a new reported number. Total AI revenue surpassed $37 billion in an annual run rate, which is up 123%. Microsoft 365 Copilot, let's get into that. They added seats. Seat adding increased 250%. They currently have 20 million plus Microsoft 365 Copilot seats that are paying, okay? So they've added 5 million since Q2. So they have 20 million customers that are paying for Microsoft 365 Copilot. Now, are they going to give you the revenue tied to that? No, they're not. And that's okay. Maybe they will someday. In terms of guidance, total revenue, 86 for the full year, for Q4, 86.7 to 87.8 billion. That's strong from a comparative to the middle point as to what the market was expecting. They were expecting somewhere around 87.53 billion. That's also growth of 13 to 15% in Q4. On the Microsoft Commercial Cloud side, on an adjusted basis, they're expecting growth between 15 and 18%. And then on Azure, they're expecting that growth to be around 39 to 40% in Q4. That actually was bigger than what the analysts were expecting. They thought they were going to say something around 37%. Now, here's the thing. A lot of customers have renewals in June. A lot of customers are being pushed maybe to do some early renewals. Microsoft is probably floating that price increases that are happening in July 1st. Microsoft is likely pushing E7. But they're absolutely pushing Microsoft 365 Copilot. They're probably talking to you a lot about Copilot Studio, GitHub, Copilot. Why am I bringing this up? It goes back to what I said around, yes, AI, but more about the licensing metric. Seat plus consumption base. So here's what Satya said. Seat-based pricing is just an entitlement to some consumption. That's, I think, the way to think about it, which is there are some base usage rights that get bundled into our packaged seats. So again, Copilot, Microsoft 365 Copilot, right, will come with a certain portion of Copilot Studio. There's a volume within that. It's not unlimited. You need to make sure that you're paying attention to how much you get and what happens when you go over that, because the consumption-based model that they're talking about to the financial community, which is going to help them drive revenue, because once the spin happens, you're going to owe them more money. You have to make sure you have transparency. You have to make sure you have proper volume structures and discounting. Satya even said there's discounting available if you commit to more. You have to make sure that you have this understood internally as well. Don't just sign on the dotted line blindly. Seat pricing, lower the push for discounting, push for renewal rights, in-term price protections, all those things. Understand how many credits or how many pieces of the consumption model you actually get. And then understand what the pricing is going to look like post that. So Amy Hood also said, CFO, if you think about getting work done and being productive, it's thinking about being a seat or a worker plus an agent, right? There's the AI. And when I think about that model, I start to think about it as a licensed business plus a consumption business. So again, the days of you just thinking, oh, it's a seat ad or an add-on, you got to get that out of your mindset. They're packaging and pushing products into these bundles that have a consumption-based component that you may not be aware of. And things like Copilot Studio, when you're thinking more for external use, not what comes with your Microsoft 365 packaging, that is consumption-based. GitHub Studio, it's going to be consumption-based. It was just announced. So you have to make sure with Microsoft you are pushing for this type of transparency. You are getting ahead of it. Whether you have June renewals right now or in the future, do this now. Take control of the process and take control of the negotiation, because this is what's coming.